In part 1, I said I would explain how both the Republicans and the Democrats have been instrumental in creating the policies that have propagated the massive monetary inequality in the United States. The first, and maybe the most important policy, was the shifting of the tax system. People love to hear the words tax cuts because they think it means more money for them. This usually isn't the case, and in fact, what we'll see is that tax cuts can and usually mean tax increases. What are called tax cuts tend to be just moving money around, moving money from the middle and lower classes and redistributing it upwards. In 1980, the top marginal tax, that's people making over $490,000, was 70%. That means everything after $490,000 was taxed at 70%. Throughout the 1950s, the top marginal tax rate was at 91%. Remember, this was during the most economically prosperous time in American history. Reagan cut this tax from 70 to 50%. By 1987, he had reduced the tax to 39%. The problem is that every year Reagan was in office, he spent more money than he took in taxes. In 1983, he collected $600 billion in taxes, but he spent $808 billion. In his last year, he collected $991 billion and spent $1.1 trillion. So sure, yeah, you can say he cut taxes, but he really didn't. All Reagan did was move money around. By the end of his presidency, he left a $153 billion deficit. That's money that had to be paid back, with interest. Another example of shifting money around were the Bush tax cuts. The taxes paid on stock gains were lowered from 35% to 15%. Remember, the top richest 10% own 79% of the stock in the U.S. Many wealthy people make a living in the stock market or live off their dividends. That's their job. Now they can pay less in taxes than doctors and lawyers. Even Warren Buffett, the second richest man in the world, is paying less in taxes than the average worker.
The taxation system has tilted toward the rich and away from the middle class in the last 10 years. It's dramatic, and I don't think it's appreciated. And I think it should be addressed.
You've gone very public with this.
Right.
You've talked about in your own office, for example, you pay a much lower tax rate with all of your wealth than, say, a receptionist does.
That's exactly right, Tom. And I think the only way to do it is with specifics. And in our office, 15 people cooperated in a survey out of 18. I didn't make anybody do it. And my total taxes paid, payroll taxes plus income tax, mine came to 17.7%. The average for the office was 32.9%. There wasn't anybody in the office, from the receptionist on up, that paid as low a tax rate. And I have no tax planning. I don't have an accountant. I don't have tax shelters. I just follow what the U.S. Congress tells me to.
Since the early 1980s, debt has grown significantly as a percentage of disposable personal income, and steep increases have occurred since 2000. In 1982, debt was at 67% of disposable personal income. By 2000, it was 102%, and in 2005, it reached an all-time high of 132%. The real estate tax, or the death tax, was another so-called tax cut. The tax was originally created in order for small families not to have too much power. Upon their death, the families are taxed on their wealth. A group of 18 families have lobbied to have this tax removed, a tax that only about 1/4 of 1% of all estates will pay. So basically, nobody benefits from this plan except a few. Only enormously powerful, wealthy people, billionaires and mega millionaires. They include the makers of Gallo Wine and Campbell's Soup, the founders of the world's largest retailer, Walmart, and the family behind the giant candy maker, Mars. Since 2009, the tax has been eliminated. Now some people will say, why punish? That's the word they always use. Why punish people just because they make more money? Why? Because they use greater resources. If I'm the owner of a company and I have 100 employees, then the government has helped me immensely. Most of my employees will have been educated by public schools. To get to my work, they will have driven on public roads. My business will be protected by the police and the fire department. I'll use the postal service to send letters. So yes, the rich should pay more. Another way of moving money around is by cutting the amount that corporations have to pay in taxes. In 1952, the government collected 32% of its taxes from corporations. In 2008, that number changed to 13.7%. During the same period, taxes collected by the government from the public rose from 42.2% to 48.4%. So now that we aren't collecting taxes from these people, where does the government get it? Well, that's the problem. It doesn't. In 2000, Bush came into office with a $236 billion surplus. By 2008, that number was $410 billion deficit. It gets worse because these numbers don't account for Iraq, Afghanistan, Katrina, and now the bailout. In reality, Republicans actually raise taxes. They pull money from schools, Social Security, Medicare and Medicaid, programs that actually help average people, and hand the money over to rich and private interests while leaving the bill to your kids and future generations. All these tax cuts were sold under the idea of trickle-down economics. This was the idea that if you gave money, our money, to business and corporations, they would turn around and invest that back in the form of creating more business, which means more jobs, which means being able to collect more tax revenues. The logic makes sense. It's a completely irrational idea, but in reality and in practice, it doesn't work that way.